Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me. This is Michael Voss of No Soundbites Allowed. I am happy to be here with you today. It is June 9th, and it's currently about 5 o'clock in the evening. And I want to welcome you. Thank you for being part of my audience. I have a wonderful guest with us here today. As you can see, I have on screen with me Mr. Kevin Jackson. Some of you may be familiar with him. He is the founder of Kevin Jackson Networks, but more importantly, as you can see on his screen, he is also the producer of Bleeding Blue. We're going to talk to him a little bit about that and life in general. But first, let me introduce you. Kevin, how are you today?
I'm doing great, man. Glad to be a part of what you're doing. And I'm glad you guys reached out to me to hopefully share a little bit more about what I do with your large and vast audience. So I appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate it as well. And I really am happy about this specifically because, to be absolutely honest, they always say, Black Republicans, we just don't exist. Black conservatives, we don't exist. And I'm like, I'm right here and you're right there. It's like, we're here. You just don't want to talk to us. Or let me say, is that a false impression? Am I misunderstanding the reality?
Well, people say that all the time. Look, here's the thing. The people like us who are vocal about our politics, we just have the guts. I'm going to put it a different way. We have the balls. I had a military guy. He talked to me one time after he read all my work. He says, dude, you got balls the size of Alaska. and I was like, no, they're bigger. How's that for a soundbite? But the issue here is that I grew up a scrappy little kid whose mother died before I turned 5, whose father was in San Quentin prison, a Black Panther. Back when the Black Panthers were a legitimate group, because we were getting our butts kicked back in the 60s by these leftist Democrats. But so he was in prison. I was raised, I came up hard. I came up poor. I wasn't exactly from the mean streets of the ghetto, but I knew what it was to be poor. And so very early on, we're probably both from that generation where, there were no excuses. People didn't give you excuses you were Black or because you didn't have a daddy, or I got whoopings. Oh, yeah. And I got scolded, and I got all the things that should happen to a little precocious kid that sometimes let his mouth, as my grandmother would say, don't let your lips overload your hips. Okay?
Yes.
So right. So that was the way we grew up. Mm-hmm. And now what happens is we've got these soft kids, and we've got this generation that wants to have their hand out for everything and act as if somebody owes them something because of things that happened to our people 200 years ago, more than that, and quite frankly have nothing to do with us. If you can't make it in America as a Black person or a Hispanic or a woman or a Guatemalan midget, shame on you, because this is the country where you should be able to do it. So I just look at it as I don't take any excuses. And I think that there are a lot of Blacks who are sick and tired of being infantilized, making us feel like little kids, giving the pat, affirmative action for this, or I'm going to let you out of this crime because you didn't have a daddy, or because there's a website called My Skin is, what is it? I think it's called My Skin is My Currency, or some nonsense like this. Look, if you do stupid stuff, I don't care what color you are, I will call you out. And I think it takes guts. So I don't want to downplay who we are. I'm going to tell you, Voss, I think we are the type of people who say, I call it the way it is, and there need to be more of us.
I agree with you on all those points. I mean, I'm 54, okay? I remember the 1970s when there was racism. In fact, in my life, and I've spoken about this publicly before, I remember when I was in elementary school and I had the older brother of a girl in my class come up to me and say, you can't speak to her, she's white. Kids today have never experienced a moment like that. They haven't experienced the transition we went through in the 70s, 80s because of the civil rights movement. And what we have today, they have no comparison. Not to say that
nothing
can be improved.
None of it. Yeah, they talk, oh, I get followed in stores. You get followed in stores because you're a thug. That's why. Because if you're the average Black dude isn't getting followed in a store. I'll put it to you this way. if Michael Jordan's getting followed in the stores because you want his autograph. When I'm dressed and go into a store, I guarantee you I'm not followed. I dress nicely. I'm not sneaking around looking to put something in somewhere. I put all my gear that I'm going to take, I go and I buy. So there's no reason to follow me. And if you are following me, I'm going to ask you for help. I'm going to say, hey, can you go and get me some socks or go do something? In fact, I'm glad you follow me because when I go to Home Depot, I don't want to look for you. I want to know you're there. So, but we have an excuse for everything, man. And you know what? Most Black folks, and I know we talk about the squeaky wheel. Most Black folks are sick of it. We are sick of being considered lesser as a doctor, lesser as an accountant, lesser as an engineer because of affirmative action. My oldest son's a graduate award and a magna cum laude graduate award.
Right.
Well, who does he need to apologize? That he went to school with all these white kids. He kicked their butts. He ended up in the top echelon of that school, not because they gave it to him, but because he earned it. And that's the only way I want to be viewed when I'm in public. I don't want you viewing me as some affirmative action case.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem that I see with this victimhood mentality is very often it's you haven't done anything. You haven't earned anything. You're being given stuff. And if you're being given something, well, then it can always be taken away. And isn't that a form of coercion that, oh, I have to keep voting for these people. I have to live this lifestyle or else they'll take it away from me and I have nothing else.
Take what away? I mean, think about it. Take what away? If somebody is going to, let's say you and we make an agreement and you say, Kevin, I'm going to give you something right now. I'm going to pay your mortgage. Okay. What you assuming the house I live in is all I want. And that's the mortgage you're going to pay. Well, I will tell you, my aspirations are much higher than this house. So if you're going to give me something, how much are you going to give me? The point is, I'm only going to give you what I want you to have. I'm not going to give you what you deserve, what you may want in your wildest of dreams. So what are you getting? You're getting chump change, man. You are getting chumped out. You are the new kid in prison and they're trading you around for cigarettes. So why really? That's what you want?
No.
Let me tell you something. My aspirations are much higher. I dream big, and most Black kids dream big. They dream of being Beyonce or Jay-Z or Jordan or Steph Curry. And what happens is somebody comes along and says, do you want to settle? I'll help you settle. Here's a little chump change. Here's a SNAP card. Here's some welfare. Here's some affirmative action. You're only going to get a certain place because I'm never going to let you have anything more. Why would I put you in charge of my company when you can't earn it?
Yeah.
And so here's your bigger point. If it isn't earned, you don't want it. It's not deserved. And in your DNA, if somebody gives you something, you treat it like that. Yeah. When you earn it, you treat it a lot differently. That's part of who you are. If you are a human being.
That's what I always believe. And I agree with that. And I thank you because I know I say it often on my program, but I don't think people hear it enough. And they look at me and go, well, you're just one guy, which is why I love to have other Republicans, conservatives, even libertarians of color that can say, no, we're out here, we're speaking. The media just isn't letting you know about it. And speaking of that, let me ask you, when you run into Democrats, progressives, moderates, and they assume, because this is my experience and I shouldn't put it on you, but my experience is they automatically assume, well, you're a progressive, you agree with this progressive ideology. When I tell them, no, I'm a Republican, I almost always get this response where they step back and they go, what? Why? And then I go, well, because, besides the fact that I was raised with discipline, I'm a former Marine. I've lived around the world. I own my own business. I own my own house. I've been a stockbroker.
You have the credentials. You've earned it. I mean, especially the Marine part. So thank you for your service.
Oh, no problem. It's an honor. But do you have that same kind of experience or is it different?
Yeah, I mean, I've had all people come up to me and make the assumptions. And I always tell them I was never stupid enough to be a Democrat, which always gets a reaction, but I want that reaction. Mm-hmm. Why would I vote for the people that used to hang my people, raped and pillaged the Black culture? Why would I vote for them? It's no different today. They haven't changed. So why would I vote for them? That's not saying the Republicans have earned my vote necessarily outside of freeing of the slaves. But I'm a pragmatist, and a pragmatist looks at a situation and says, what's best for the good of everybody, and then what's best for myself. If you are a humanitarian, you look at what's for the greater good. In other words, I don't like paying taxes, but I understand I need to pay something. So I'm going to look at what's for the greater good. Now I'm going to look at what's good for me. And what happens is leftists steal our money. And when you're up to 50% in taxes because you're a person of that you've earned your way, and the better you get at it, the more they want to take, we finally start pushing back. So I'm a pragmatist. I don't put me in whatever title you want. I don't care call me, label it whatever you need. I will tell you this, I'm always going to err on the side of being pragmatic. What is best for society that fits my lifestyle, that doesn't infringe on anybody else. So going back to the question, should blacks be this way or that way? I'm insulted when somebody says, I think you should be this way. Well, how should you be, white boy? How should you be, white woman? I don't make an assumption about how you vote any more than I would make an assumption about who you want to marry or what kind of food you're going to eat for your next meal. So I'm insulted that someone thinks they can just peg me based on that. I'm an individual, free thinking person of the 7.6, give or take, billion people that are walking the face of the earth. Here's what I'll tell you, Voss, not a single one of us are identical. We're not identical in color. We're not identical in ideology. We're not identical in methodology or anything else. So when people want to lump me into you're black, so you think this way or that way, that is the most idiotic thing I've ever heard, because I would never go to a white person and go, oh, you're white, so here's how you are.
Mm-hmm. And you're right, because that's the whole checkbox mentality, which is normally called the intersectionality or gender identity politics or critical race theory. But that leads me into a question in talking about you're doing the film Bleeding Blue. And it's a documentary. I have seen it. I have rated it. I think it's a very well-made documentary. And there's an aspect of it I'm going to ask you about in a moment.
Sure.
But I want to ask first, given what the news media says about police hunting Black people, targeting us, talking about Black crime being disproportionate, these are the things we hear, and that police are responsible for the ills of the Black community. Now, knowing that that's the message out there, and yet looking at your film, talking about police and the experience between Black Americans and the police, let me ask you first, what made you do this film? And then what made you take it in the direction that you did?
Well, first of all, I did the film because somebody wanted me to do it to bridge the gap between police and the Black community. I did it as a public service to say to young Black men, stop looking at the police as an enemy, look at them differently, behave differently, and you'll find out you'll get a very different reaction. Everybody who was getting killed, I mean, there's a litany of them, and I've written about all of them, from Michael Brown Jr. to Eric Garner, all of them, Philip Castillo, all of them, all these guys, most of them had one thing in common. They resisted arrest. So stop resisting arrest, take that little pill, go get your stuff done, call your attorney, whatever, and you survive. This George Floyd would have survived had he just said, hook me up. Mm-hmm. So how about we put some responsibility there? Now, when cops are bad, I'm the worst person I don't like a bad cop. But what I don't like is when I know the crime rate in the Black community, and as we say in the hood, game, no game. So I know I got uncles that used to catch cases, and I know for a fact they missed 3 of them before they finally caught a case. So don't try to play this game like Black folks are, we're so innocent in all of this. We have high crime, not because it's part of our DNA, but because what leftists have driven us to. They've driven us into the ghetto, into what they call Black neighborhoods. They've taken away opportunity. They've taken away our fathers, our whole family units. They try to take away our God. And then they wonder what happens when we start running around like bull elephants, like elephant herds, the youngsters that have to go out before they can find a mate. We act nutty because we are trained to be nutty. and trained to be ready to excite, and get ourselves up to violence, when in fact we should be more deliberate. And so all those things have led to the crime in Black neighborhoods. And then what do they want to do? They want to pull the cops out. Snitches get stitches and get, buried in ditches and all the other kind of stuff. We should feel better about ourselves to say, let's bring law enforcement in here so that we can have safer neighborhoods, better schools, better communities, et cetera. So I made the movie to say, first of all, stop with the lies. Stop acting like Black people don't commit crime. We do. Stop acting like it is some sort of epidemic, because it's not anywhere close, and I can prove it. And oh, by the way, let's take a real examination of policing, good and bad, because if you watch the film, I don't give police a pass. I talk about bad cops. Mm-hmm. In the director's cut, we talk about mafia cop, a dude who was on the take for the mob and worked for the police. His story is not good at all. So we're telling a truthful story versus the lie that leftists always try to perpetrate on the Black community. And that pisses me off.
No, I can understand that. And I found it very poignant. And one of the things in the film that I think is important, and I don't want to give away too much about it, but you had a character, a case study that you've seen throughout the film, and it subverts the expectation, and I want to know, did you set up that character where we see pieces of them throughout the entire film? Was that done because you expected people to think, oh, this is the opposite of who he turned out to be, the opposite of what that?
No, it's just called the arc. It's so most documentaries are boring to me. They don't have, they aren't putting any type of anything in there to make a comparison, because what I wanted was a compare and contrast. And there's some really cool subtleties in the movie, and I'll give you one that you probably missed. You remember when Clifford's mother is finishing and she's crying and she's saying, I'm gonna get there one day. Yeah. And then you hear Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. And it's an empty street. We cut that scene because what we were saying is, if Black Lives Matter, why don't they matter on the streets of Chicago where people get killed every day? There was nobody there as that was being said. So we did cool little subtleties in there that some people catch, some people didn't. As far as Clifford is concerned, that was our first arc. We wanted an arc for the film that had people gravitate to understand a character. And then we put him all the way through the film with his family. And then we end the arc of the film there. Then there are multiple arcs in between. One is, how was policing in the past? Back in the old days of the 40s and 50s, how did it migrate into the 60s and the civil rights movement? How was it being impacted by the media? How is it being impacted by pop culture? What are the religious implications, et cetera? So we have these mini arcs, M-I-N-I, mini arcs within there that we open and close while Clifton is being developed the entire time. And it was just a movie technique that I wanted to do because, and we also talked about pop culture in terms of entertainment, but also football and Obama and kind of where it all started. So those are all the little mini arcs, but I wanted it to be entertaining all the way through, where you looked at every little piece of it and you went, I didn't know that, or wow, that was really cool. And then of course we buried stories of actual real life police footage from what was hot at the time. Ferguson, which I think we revealed some really cool and some interesting things about Ferguson that most people didn't know. The Colorado theater shooting and others. So I thought we did a really good job. I wanted to tell a story, but I wanted to break it into pieces and close it off with the story of Clifton. And some people would get it and some people wouldn't. I think it's probably 60-40. Most people were shocked, maybe 70-30. Most people were shocked by the ending of that particular story.
Well, I think a lot of people may be, and I was talking to a friend who had also saw it, and we kind of noticed that it subverted in a way, and I think it was eye-opening, that the assumptions, because the media has been so persistent in trying to portray a certain image, and the way the film starts with Clifton and where it ends with Clifton, it's not just his story, but also understanding, wait a minute, Why did you think that at the beginning? Because that's not where it goes at the end.
Yeah.
The mental image that you've been fed from the news media is wrong.
Right.
And I think that's very powerful for people to see that and go, wait a minute, something's wrong. And it's not
what's wrong with this picture
in front of us. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important for that. And again, I want people to see this for themselves so they can understand how this is impactful in revealing a lot.
Well, I appreciate that. And that's what I wanted. I wanted people to see it and here's what happens in the conservative movement. We do things and people say, well, it was okay, it wasn't like Hollywood. That movie, if I were on the other side of this issue, would have won all kinds of awards in Hollywood, right?
Yeah.
But because I made it fair, it can't win any. It won awards at film festivals that we put it in, but it isn't going to win in a big way like it was a Michael Moore film.
Right.
But what I wanted to produce was something that conservatives could look at and go, let me tell you, I recommend you watch it, and I guarantee you'll like it. It had humor, it had every element, and that the arcs that we put in there were, in my opinion, spectacular. So I want us to be proud of what we create, but also it needs to be something that, as I said, saves lives, saves somebody watches it and says, you know what, I got to tell myself something different when I confront law enforcement, things like that.
No, I think it's a very honest film, and I think it does get that message across. I know we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to try and hit something really quick before we leave.
Okay.
Because I know you're often on CNN, you're on all the major news media stations out there speaking, and a lot of people don't get an opportunity to do that. Given that, and knowing the nature of media at this moment, and currently we're hearing about the red flag laws, we're hearing about our inability. Somehow Black people are unable to be able to vote. And we're hearing people like Joe Biden coming out and saying, well, you're not really Black if you don't vote for him. You're hearing from Kamala Harris talking to Charlemagne saying, well, don't be a conservative, don't be a Republican. They're insulting us. And I have to ask you, when you get on these programs and you tell them, well, no, I'm not just a checkbox, what's the reaction off the camera? Do they understand that we're individuals, or is it something they truly believe throughout the entire news organization?
Well, it depends on who we're talking about, but if it's the audience, like if you go on CNN or MSNBC, it's vitriolic. I mean, people are threatening your life. I used to get death threats and all that, but I tell people all the time, I don't have 4 black belts because I'm a pacifist. I will whoop your butt. All right. So I'm not worried about that. I had people threaten to kill me. The new Black Panthers threatened to kill me. I said, bring it. Look, we all got to die someday. I'm not a coward. So I think that once you stand your ground and people understand, people first think, oh, you're just talking. I can back you down. They don't understand. I'm 100%. When I tell you, I will absolutely whoop your butt, and I'm cleaning up for your show. I mean it with 100% sincerity, and I will end you. If you think you're going to fight me, a grown butt man, I'm not going to fight you. I'm going to destroy you. And when they finally get it, because I tell you, I've had people, they get on the little keyboards and stuff. I've had them get in my face. I told 2 black dudes at an event, you open your mouth one more time, I'm going to come down there. I'm going to kick your butt. I said it differently. And I said, I'm going to whoop your friend's butt for being here with you. Try me. And they walked out because I was dead serious. See, this is not a game to me. This is not something where it's like, oh, we win, so we get Joe Biden. You lose, so you lose Trump. Who lost? The nation lost. You know who else lost? Ukraine lost. Taiwan may lose. North Korea's losing. All the people that may get nuked by Iran are losing. The people who are starving to death right now because of Bidenflation are losing. This is not a game. Right. This is legit. So if you think I'm treating it like a game, bring it. Because I'm going to tell you something. You're going to find out it's not a game to me. Now, does Don Lemon believe it's nonsense? I don't think so. Don Lemon's getting a check. and he's going to do what it takes to get his check. I think most of them are frauds. I've listened to Jesse Jackson in a private meeting that is nothing like the Jesse Jackson you see in public. It's whoever writes the biggest paycheck. And that's why I love what we do, because we could make so much money, man, flipping the script and going to the other side of this. They call us sellouts. Are you kidding? I would be as rich as Elon Musk if I was a leftist. Do you understand how smart I am and what I'm capable of doing? I could take those white people's money and parlay it into all kinds of stuff. I would be insider trading with the best of them. Come on, Nancy, let's do it, girl. Right? No, I would be right there with Pelosi.
Well, I understand. If I wanted to be a Democrat, I'd be a governor of New York by now.
Exactly.
I know the politics game, but I know we have a hard limit coming up. So I do want to make sure that not only to be able to see Bleeding Blue, how can people reach you on some of your future projects as well?
Yeah, so the Kevin Jackson Network, THE, thekevinjacksonnetwork.com. Everything I do is there. My podcast, the movie we're doing, the sequel to 2000 Mules. If you want to help us fundraise for that, that's there. All my efforts for at-risk kids and getting them into colleges and all of our educational stuff, everything that I do is at thekevinjacksonnetwork.com. And I hope thousands of people join us, especially on the Backstage Pass, which is our pay. You get behind the firewall, but we show you everything we do, from working with the kids to hanging out with superstars, et cetera. You get an inside glimpse of everything that we do.
Well, I'm going to try and make sure as many people as I can see this, and hopefully also see Bleeding Blue and all the work that you're doing in the future. Kevin, I know we have a hard limit. I want to say to you, thank you for taking the time to be able to speak with me today, to be able to answer some of the questions. I want to have you back when we'll have a little more time to expand on some of the other things that you're working on.
Happy to do it.
Your thoughts. And folks, again, this is No Soundbites Allowed. I'm your host, Michael Voss. This has been Kevin Jackson. I want you to see Bleeding Blue, and I thank you for your time today.
My pleasure. Take care.